Okay, so it begins. Hello, everyone. I hope my voice is loud and clear. Today's episode is a casual one. It is one where I have a certain insight on the title, but I am also wondering how far it can go. And really, this episode is unique in the sense that the subtitle actually was intended to be like the main title, but the subtitle was too long, so I pretty much it's like they've been switched, right? So, but anyways, this episode, Artificial Paradises and Transcendental Realizations. Really, my main focus is to speak about how psychological or organizational structures update through reactions to abstract comfortability. There's a major point here, and I guess I'll start the episode. Let me find a nice song to play in the background. I recommend people who enjoy listening to music, open a new tab, set the volume to 50%, and play any song you want. All right. To be honest, I'll start here. I'll say that in all these years I've been giving these talks, what's been strange? I have been like a artist, trying out my own unique brushstrokes, but I've come to realize that really the governance of attention is not all due to the free will. And there are moments in life where the moment is more alive than our psychological framework and use of memory. I'll explain this later. So anyways, what does one human being out of 8 billion in a universe with countless stars and galaxies, and in actuality, it's like we're spinning on a rock in the middle of nowhere and we named everything, including knowledge. That is like the true existential level of how it is. But this isn't on mute, right? Okay, we're good. Okay, let me see. How do I dive into this? Artificial paradises and transcendental realizations, that's intended for the future. I would start from the present, right now, the present I'm in. I don't know if there's parallel universes where there's different versions of me, advancing different parts of civilization. But in this realm, I would say that I'll call it Earth 1. In 2022, I have noticed that really what is going on this planet for now, it's like on a grazing level. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. When we look at culture, there was a point where, like, if you were a shepherd back in the day, like you had to guard sheep. It's like that was like big work back in the day, It's like nowadays we're like, oh my God, is this guy like a rocket scientist? Back in the day, he was like, yo, is this guy shepherding sheep right now? Like that. And the reason I'm saying that is that you look at the major point of it is that just like a shepherd is taking care of the sheep, the shepherd just takes the sheep to a new land and then they graze, okay? Now, at the end of the day, the shepherd acts like God for the sheep, and the dogs acts as like a sort of guardian angel. sorry, not guardian angel, like one of the archangels, and in some sense, the sheep all are organized and relocated. Okay? Now, when I say human beings are grazing, you look at it from the perspective of a sheep, and a sheep doesn't expect much from itself. Do you know? A sheep just grazes and does what it's told, because what else can it do? You see? One of the most fascinating realizations I've had, honestly, like a transcendental realization, was that if our minds are abstraction or abstract expressionism, then the content of our mind is abstract. Do you know the dichotomy of creating something called imagination and reality and separating these two? Where if somebody comes and says, I imagine the storm is coming, you know, somebody looks at the sky, it's sunny, he's like, hey man, that's you imagine that, right? But when it comes to wondering about the texture of reality and whether it's artificial or not, when it comes to this consideration that we are imagining reality behind our eyes, and that is really what the brain seems to be doing. You know, more than us, we are like seeing objects, or we're like seeing ourselves as a creature in a world. It's more like the brain is happening. You know, it's never the pure sight. You know, a huge philosophical argument can be made that we can never truly see anything. And this argument is very simple, that it's like if the human being is limited and if the world is limitless, it's like how many different types of ways of human living are in the collective unconscious. When I say how psychological organizational structures update through reactions to abstract comfortability, and when I say, like I brought up the concept of artificial paradises, this is really, I guess, I'll say it this way, right now, we are like the best thing a human being can do. I think most like intelligent people come into this conclusion that one man can't change the world, so it makes sense for that one man to, in some sense, participate in the world, right? Ever since survival became a major concept for how the free will administers itself, you know, it's like, to me, an advanced human being is not just a human being that listens to their instincts, but is a human being that has noticed something more than their instincts. You see, there is nothing in nature that explains creaturehood. And when I say nothing explains creaturehood, the bizarreness of, like, this is a very bizarre view, but I'll share it this way. Imagine the Big Bang Theory was accurate, and imagine that you were these invisible, like an invisible video game spectator, but it's at the origin of the Big Bang, and you are invisibly watching the Big Bang happen. And it's as if like this burst of energy, right? And then this burst of energy, this massive temperature, like I don't know how to even say it's for people to visualize it, but it's as if like through less than a few seconds, this is considered cosmic inflation, right? Less than a couple seconds, suddenly, just like a blacksmith pulling out a sword from a furnace, right? Yeah, or a baker or a pizza maker taking out the pizza from, like, you know, one of those old school kind of connected to the wall ovens, you know. It's as if once everything cooled down, structure and shape and geometry became relevant. And really what it is like geometrical energy is geometrically expressing itself, and the way it is energy is being expressed as the human being is so inconceivable from the designer's perspective. That means this might be something like, I don't know, maybe new people have never heard, but it's as if you want to become truly religious, truly a man who wants to wonder about the source of God, you have to study design. And Plato talks about the world of forms, right? To me, this is part of my, believe it or not, my subconscious faith. To me, there's a realm in this planet where everything is pure geometrical. Like right now, I'm some dude who started a podcast called Mr.Within online, right? But in the world of forms, it's as if just like how we look at everything and we're like, yo, everything's energy, right? It's the same thing that we begin to realize everything is geometry. And then when we wonder why geometry moves the way it does, this is where I would say the journey of the advanced communicator begins in a lifetime. You see, my task is not to give people answers, because that's not the purpose of a teacher, right? And I'll tell you this, my purpose is not even to be a teacher, because what I am envisioning for the future is so bigger than me. Do you know that it's like on the one angle, I could say I have like, the poetically a time traveler's ego, where on one angle I'm like, yo, I'm doing some new shit in 2022, but at the same time I'm like, it's like before people's attention comes on me, I have prioritized their attention going to the world. Do you know, I'll tell you something crazy. The way my karma is played out in this life, I am a person who I can change karma. And when I tell you I can change karma, it's another way of saying that the center of the self has appeared to me as void. Do you know there's a reason why Buddhists are, silently freaking out about emptiness in their meditations? I am telling you, we are such a multidimensional being that it's as if we are gifted with ever-updating perception. If people realize this is part of being a human being, all the knowledge wars will end. Because really, that's where the issue with truth, right? Truth in a cultural sphere leads to anarchy. Truth in a political sphere leads to world domination. Truth on a universal sphere is so beyond planetary desire that it's as if like a universal being doesn't have any more planetary desires. Maybe it will have galactic desires. Do you know? Like a universal being is like, all right, I'm going to incarnate as a galaxy, and imagine a galactic, being. Being like, I'm going to incarnate as a, sun, and imagine the sun, the solar system being like, I'm going to incarnate, as a planet, and then the planet being like, I'm going to incarnate as a part of myself, like a person on the planet. And then that person being like, I'm going to incarnate as the whole universal presence. Do you understand this world? We as human beings have been blessed with an energetic connection to an all the time present existential truth. People don't realize it, it's like people who are still searching for truth. I'll tell you, you haven't realized how unknown everything is. To me, this is the sign of enlightenment. Anybody can claim like oneness. Do you understand? People can act loving and be sincere in doing so, but is it enough for the world that we deserve as a species? Do you see? There was, sometimes I have strange thoughts where I think about, like, okay, if I had a title based on what I've done so far on this planet, let's say, like, there was, Alexander the Great, or I don't know, like, it's like various type of attributions based on like how much the outer effort actually serves the outer. I'm trying to say that honestly what is happening here is that an organizational system unconsciously developed until we became conscious of it. You see, it's as if a child is born. Let's say I was born in 1991, so imagine me as a child, I'm born, and now it's as if the psychology of the child is not born the moment the child is born. Sure, the brain and the eyes act like some sort of, spherically aware, like video recorder, let's say. But the child's psychology is when free will starts moving, right? The concept of the soul is so profound, guys. People don't realize how important mysticism is. When a person realizes the unknown is their teacher, that is when the true ego death. That is true enlightenment to me. The fearlessness to be present as an unknown force and realizing for 4.5 billion years, however long you want to say, like we have been kind of developing, right? The beautiful thing about nature, right, is that it creates interactions between worlds within itself to preserve worlds outside of it. You know, if some schools of thought even have this view that the whole universe is like a universal being, and when human beings are not in harmony with their environment, they are like a disease or dis-ease of like, you know, the universal entity. Because if you really look at what religion is that religion is an additional dimension of consideration of what needs to be overlaid on a rock in the middle of empty space. You know, those people that want the greatest designs, it's as if when you wonder about what the greatest designer wants, the greatest designer has reached the finale. I am telling you, people don't realize how powerful concentration is. Concentration is something where I'll tell you, if everybody's DNA made them like a unique martial artist, okay, for example, just like how they would have unique martial arts when it comes to concentration and how each individual on this planet pilots their attention. Do you understand? It's like when you go for a walk, sure, your body's walking in the park, but your attention is starting like based on your height, like above the ground. To me, sight is information. Information is geometry. Geometry is how the unknown animated itself into the known. And when it comes to the unknown, the greatest realization is the abandonment of the known self. That means it's like, I would say to myself that when I am alone, I am not a self. I am just, my attention's present. I'm the presence of unknown attention when I'm alone, but the moment I'm doing a sort of act, excuse me, in a humanized context, then it's as if, like, you know, in Japanese they say the man is the room he's in. You know, it's as if, like, imagine that there was a Zen master, right? Probably 100% in history this should have happened, right? Where there was a Zen master and a Zen disciple came, and the Zen master's like, yo kid, why do you want to learn Zen? And the kid was just afraid of everything. So imagine a Zen master has to teach, you know, a human being who's afraid of the world, you know. I would say the first thing the Zen master would do in that situation, I'm thinking of like, what is the fastest way to advance attention towards every person's original state. It's as if we are instruments or we're like some sort of radio. It's like we can tune into our original state, recognize the deathless nature of it, and then come back to the world of the temporary with the comfort of a contentment of a reality that is present within all of us. It's honestly like the mind is trying its hardest to realize where its edge is. And if somebody was like, Mr. Within, where's the edge of your mind? I would say one edge is how my eyes look at a sky that is too big, like the universe universe is too big, so I would fathom the end of the universe is like an impossible attainment, you know. That means we are the evolution, like it's as if some, imagine a group of, this is hypothetical what I'm saying, imagine a group of aliens, like advanced, enlightened, compassionate aliens were like living on Earth, and they were all like thinking really deeply, and they're like, one of the aliens turns to the other aliens like, yo man, this species has been functioning, like evolving through survival this whole time, right? And imagine humorously the other alien looks around and he's like, we can't interrupt, right? You see, the aliens would look at Earth, wonder why survival happened, and they would come to the realization survival is the platform where the free will flies off. This is, honestly, we are birds. The mind is like a bird, the body is like a monkey, okay? But the mind is like a bird, and when the mind is ready, that means there's enough stability and recognition of one's own presence, then one enters the domain of novelty, and the domain of novelty is one of the most incredible states that artists can reach, right? And the domain, I would say it this way, it's kind of like when everything is unknown, everything you do becomes new. Like if somebody was like, Mr. Within, where's novelty hiding? I would say it's right behind the unknown. The edge of knowledge, like novelty is like the UN translator. If the edge of knowledge and the edge of the unknown were like needed a negotiation. You know what's really hilarious? The concept of growth means new dimensions are being added. New dimensions being added is the concept of revelation. And people are looking for revelation in language. Like, what is that? People. I've heard some people say, I don't have, I'm not very, I don't have creativity. I can't, imagine. I don't have an imagination. And then at the same time, they're like, but I believe in a God. I believe in a God that is like this and that. Do you understand? It's as if everybody's creative, but they are choosing the level of its presence. The way people are living in 2022 on Earth, it's as if like we're in the wrong room and the party is in another dimension in our desires or in our ignorance. Alright guys, quick intermission. Okay. Alright. This is one of those topics that it can branch out in so many ways. I'll say this, that here, I'll do the talk justice and focus on the title. Artificial paradises is how the mind creates a version of the world that is more appetizing, that is more desirable than the outer realms. This is where the artificial paradise psychology happens. All those people who have hope are actually in an artificial paradise like karma, like wave, you know. Transcendental realizations is the recognition that regardless of what kind of karma you have, regardless of how you have been a human position in the cosmos, when one recognizes that life, just like how they said it's made of chaos and order, stillness is order, and movement is chaos. Silence is order, and language is chaos. You know? So the greatest transcendental realization, this is how I would say anybody who's interested in this concept of advanced communicators I speak about, this is the way I will direct you. I will tell you this is how it is in my view. In order to become an advanced communicator doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect to all outer realms. It means upon receiving an experiential contentment with the unknown, one finds a liberation from their mortality. It's as if the person's first was like, oh my God, I'm going to die at some point in this world. Everybody dies at some point. You know, this is bizarre. You know, and then the person suddenly realizes, no, that reaction and emotion was to the temporary. That which is not temporary is another way of saying that one has found the time traveler's machine. The time traveler's machine is not in time. That is why it can go anywhere in time. When a person realizes beyond chaotic dimensions of interpretation and ordered dimensions of interpretation, there is a viewer of them both. The poet Rumi says, just like a bird needs two wings to fly, the mind requires chaotic and ordered variables to exist. When a person realizes this, then it's their whole life from the beginning to its end. Every day they wake up has been a simulation between a spectrum of chaotic events and ordered events. And I am telling you, it's like when you seek comfort, you go towards ordered events, but the hilarious thing about order is that it's only left for chaos to happen. It's this bizarre situation where the evolution of order is into chaos and the evolution of chaos is into order. It would be something like, let's say right now, some parts of, you know, certain major countries, you know, their busiest areas, it's like there's people who are living at, let's say, luxurious levels, you know, for example, political level, right? And then there are people who are living in the hardest possible way. You know, somebody said no child left behind, and I was like, that is like, honestly, like hope at the wrong time. Let me tell you what I mean by this. Just like a gardener plants seeds, the evolution and history of all the systems that we see that are in place and occurring, it's as if the purpose of intelligence is to live on. Biologically, that translates as reproduction and survival gets a check mark. But non-physically, what does that translate into? You know, so many people are like, I want to follow my dreams and I want to buy like this, you know, an NHL team or NFL team, whatever, right? But it's as if after your greatest ambition, what do you do? This is a question I've had, I haven't had the privilege of anyone asking me, but it's a question of, you know, what after everything's display? That means time showcased to whatever attention that remained, all that it was. when you recognize that there's an inner realm and outer realm, that's really a game changer. You know, it's as if after 4.5 billion years, this creature could suddenly utilize its intelligence in such a profound way. You know what it is? It's like we are not designed to fit in to how the past saw the future. We are designed to create the future. Plato says time is the moving image of eternity. It's another way of saying realities and time are shadows of a timeless, intelligent presence. You know, it's as if they say, you know, God first created, or first was this. You know, it would be as if first no one opened the book. As if it's a recognition that what is sacred means it has its own access at its own time. Our artificial paradises are another way of saying that the human being's value system has become more, let's say, abstract or subjective, prioritized, or their value system has become technological, prioritized, you know. Trust me, there's right now as I'm speaking 100%, there is like probably like trillionaire, billionaire materialists who are like like I could totally see like a trillionaire, you know, having like this meeting in his office, like, and then the, you know, the assistant of the trillionaire comes in, and the trillionaire's like, find me the fountain of youth. You know, the trillionaire is gonna be like, it's like a trillionaire saying, go bring me immortality. Like, imagine a trillionaire telling his assistant, like, go find me immortality, man. I'll give you a raise. You know? Pretty much a natural, intelligent process of nature. Let's say a natural process, like a biological, you know, program, or like some sort of program just moving on the surface of the earth. Let's say it's as if creaturehood is otherworldly design. Human beings had a nomadic place, nomadic phase. They had an agricultural phase. They settled down, you know. They had an urbanization phase. And they have now a futurist phase. This might be one of the most important things that needs to be said ever, I would say, is that more than ever, the world needs visionary futurism. Visionary futurism will become the salvation and the greatest, you know, advancement of the human mind into having a proper relationship with technology. You know, in the future, imagine the wealthiest people on the planet, you know, the most elite people on the planet, they get bored. You know, I wrote about this in my science fiction. Imagine like they get bored, and they get bored of being like, you know, like let's say all the dictators on the planet, they get bored of being dictators in the outer realms, and they go into cyberspace, and in cyberspace they create an artificial paradise where they are in some sense, like, how would I tell you? It's as if the wealthy in the future are all gonna be like cyber gods. Okay. Just like we have had kings fight over kingdoms on the surface of the planet, that's gonna happen in cyberspace too. The cyber wars are gonna be like some next level phase of humanity. Even beyond urbanization, I'll create this, I'll make a point of this here. I'll create this idea for this, let's call it interstellarization on a cultural level. Pretty much history has been a way an object randomly became a subject to itself. Now that it's a subject to itself, it's recognizing that it's not just a subject and it can utilize and move around subjects. People don't understand, but if a person just closes their eyes, sits down, and visualize like living in a reality, they're going to be fascinated how much of how many revelations of their own mind they will attain. You see, people may think that, okay, Mr. Within, so you're saying that the human attitude has to be divided between a spectrum of simple and complex, and it seems like the simpler your attitude is, you go to heaven, the more complex it is, you go to hell. Right? And it's kind of like this notion that, okay, it is from one context, the world, a place where we have been placed like chess pieces, as if the chess pieces already have destinies on the chessboard. It's as if a person can see like let's say your knight on a chessboard, and it's as if you can say the destiny of this chess piece is to move in L positions all the time, right? But at the same time, in what ways you play that knight, it's like, do you understand? Like, there's a difference. It's kind of like, have we opened our eyes in a movie where we don't know who the director is and all the actors are improvising their truths? How unknown is really reality. I am telling people that I feel I have figured out not what genius is, but I have figured out how genius can be defined. And in my opinion, it is actually the same way where you say if there's a bunch of people, let's say there's 10 people in a room and they each have boxes on their head. Do you know, like Minecraft boxes on their head? And it's as if like one person in that room taking off the box on their head and all the other people with boxes on their head being like, yo, look at this guy, he doesn't have a box on his head, you know? It's like, do you understand? And sort of, the ego's kind of hidden desires project, right? I have noticed this. I have tried, there was moments in my life where I would say I have had powerful moments. And when I say powerful, I mean it in the sense like, aside from synchronistic display of events, it's like I have had moments on this planet, guys, where I feel I have seen the soul of the moment. Not my soul, because that's unknown to me. But I feel I have seen how the moment animates and where it actually arises from. And it's bizarre. This is going to be one of the most bizarre things I'll say on this podcast. We are being broadcast in the conscious waking state. it's as if just like I'm using YouTube to live stream in cyberspace, it's like the human being is taking the role of YouTube in a fractal sense. And I'll say something that the future generations have to know. 2022 still was a year where truth hunting was shunned. Everything has an organizational structure, and when it comes to human consciousness, that we call that a psychological organizational structure. And organizational structure could be as simple as, like, I am me, I am this self. And so you have a sort of snapshot view on what you are. Everybody pretty much has their own organizational structure, kind of stylized through their experiences, really. There have been human beings on this planet, they have woken up every day and they have chosen, for example, the energetic openings of cruelty and violence. There have been human beings that have been born on this planet and have been like, oh man, let's worship how the leaves fall on like a fall from the tree. Like it's as if, like, honestly, to me, the great ones, I'll name them that, would be the human beings that suddenly snap out of identifying with a chunk of rock, or identifying as the presence of the universe accessible. That's all we can do. The end of the search of truth is the recognition of our greatest efforts into the realization that the result is unknown. That means the first answer to truth is it's unknown. The second answer, everything becomes a theory of how the unknown is shaped, or how the edges of the unknown. And if human beings, and I'm not blaming capitalism on this, but I want to say that it's important to realize that it seems the human being is destined to become a consumer. Do you understand? It's as if, like, emotional appetite is becoming the main dimension of decision making for global culture, rather than starting at the simplest principles of how reality is functioning. We can build an advanced civilization that it's updating faster than we can know it's updating. This is possible. We are reaching a time, for the first time in our history of humanity, where it is now time to allow the minds of the human being to identify with the interstellar, with the galactic. That means, I hope this is something where parents in the future should start naming their children based on the macrocosm. Not just, it's like, how can I tell you names are born? pretty much, the Ribhu Gita says it like this, that the human being in samsara is kind of like, it starts off as a bewildered beast. And when I say a bewildered beast, that means like an entity that is so overstimulated by its environment that it can never settle on its feet. From that position, we have moved towards the era where the possibilities of collective mindhood are coming. People don't realize how important what I'm saying is, but the human identity, the natural human archetype, is under a sort of artificial paradise possession. It's as if like the looping of certain past ideologies is preventing the future generations to realize that they are in the garden where they must plant their greatest garden. The best way to explain writing, actually, I think, is that it's a garden. On an existential level, everybody has completed their existential purpose, their existence. But when it comes to the experiential level, it's like, just like how they say, in every situation of life, be like the eagle on the branch that sees that dimension, and also be like the eagle that flies into the sky, looks at the whole forest at once, and then returns to the branches of his choosing. People feel freedom means like the person's just happy. No, freedom is something just like an Xbox thing that it says achievement unlocked. It has that kind of vibe. It's like the moment a materialist notices that the mind where the meaning of their life is arising from, and what awareness is like the glow of the candle is not the wax. When this is realized, it's as if like the profoundness of what the soul implied was that there is unknown, there's more doors to truth than we thought. Pretty much a beast evolved, a savage beast evolved to a civilized human being. And I am saying that civilized human being has access to existential comfort, but the games of the outer realms are denying moments of observation. It's like there's some people who just notice there's a lighthouse, and there's some people who actually go inside one and look at it from that angle. There's advanced states of being that we human beings can access, and everybody is on equal ground. People don't realize there's no such thing as geniuses. It's just that the world is so vast and so unknown that any effort to know is the entrance into a new dimension of perception. What else can I say? You saw something that your memory didn't know what to do with, right? So it's like you're like, okay, spiritual experience time. I am really telling you, the mysteries of the world are immense, right? That means the questions that we human beings have, they are like aliens. That's the beautiful thing about philosophy. People don't realize philosophy is like an effort of all the human beings on the planet to figure out what's exactly going on, and is it even possible to know? And this has caused a war between continental and analytical philosophers. And I think it was meant that the analytical philosophers should have won, but now it is the era of continental philosophy. Now it is the era of not fearing the unknown position of reality. This is the most honest thing that someone can say. It's as if like, hey, imagine somebody whispers to you, hey man, it's like, what's truth? And it's as if you look at reality and you're like, it's so excuse me, it's so instantaneous that it cannot be defined. And if a person wonders about instantaneous concentration rather than just like trying to speed up your concentration, or accelerated, I'll say it like it's like this. You befriend your own mind in the presence of the world that your most honest self has viewed. And then there is the authentic explorer, which is pretty much then you become a scholar, right? Do you know if children, before they finish middle school, like let's say up to middle school, children had like next level, like this is in the future, imagine they had next level like educational system where when they finished middle school they had enough medical knowledge to like on a surgeon level, like incredible, like anytime, like the children of the future generations are gonna all be doctors just before they finish middle school, right? And at the same time they are explorers of the world they're in once, and they understand the magnitude of this. They understand that all human efforts, all man-made efforts are incomplete in contrast to the macrocosmic position, suggesting beyond human framework how many different ways of life are happening right now. It's as if we are worshipping, this is the hilarious thing. There was first, let's say, object worship. Some dude saw, like, let's say, like, I don't know, like a leaf with dew on it, like like a sunbeam hitting the leaf and being like, yo, this is divine, and imagine somebody looking at the possibility of the future, befriending the spirit of the future brings might. This is the algorithm. That means energy. Some people have this energy where I need to get energy, I need to have energy. Those are all true biologically, but I'm saying, when it comes to the mind, a person shouldn't be like, where can I get energy? The mind is energy. So all that it requires is to orient itself to a universal context where truth is not just accessible, it is instantaneously present. And if you move in that reality, you will realize that it's like we overreacted to a transcendental dimension that our species had access to, but all the other species were in awe of. Do you understand? It's kind of like energy doesn't have a personality, and energy can be alive just like we are. We are just energy alive in a biological format with personality. Right? There could be so many ways that energy is present right now. This is why I'm saying that the divine cultures of the past should not be forgotten, because in them they held the true explorer of life. That means it's as if the greatest advanced civilization would treat people, everybody, like a tourist that requires the best service, the tourist in the world. It's like when we realize stories dictate our lives, and we realize stories are dictated by that which creates the story. You realize the value of honesty. I am someone who, I will tell you guys, like, I have, due to the nature of how far I intend to perceive things, I have dehumanized myself before I humanized myself. That means, as I went towards my earliest memory in my psyche, I came into the realization there was a point where there was no memory of self. And beyond that point where there's no memory of self is another way of realizing the unknown was in the room first before knowledge could move. It's all about the maintenance of your state. Shira Wanamashi calls it abidance by your true nature. Some other people call it like find your original state, bro. It's like it doesn't matter who you are in this world, what sort of psychological display happens, because it's all energy that happens. It's like every day happens once, and it's pretty much really, what it is. It's as if we are like we are 100-year-old event that has been, cut like a film strip into days with intervening unconsciousness. I think one of the greatest technological wonders of the future would be a technology that surpassed sleep. When sleep becomes automated, that would be such a next level era of humanity. That would be an era where human beings would be 24/7 awake, but their consciousness and their energy levels would be different. It would pretty much be like the concept of an insomniac wouldn't exist anymore, because everybody in that vision is in some sense so energized that it's as if, what do you do with the surplus of energy? The future will surprise us all in a way where we will loosen our beliefs like weapons of an artificial war that never needed to take place. From idol worship, we went to language worship. So we were worshiping objects, and we're like, yo, this object's God. And then somebody's like, nah, man. Someone named Abraham's like, nah, man, that isn't, an object isn't God. God is a subject. It's the singular subject of reality. And based on that, we have been in an era of subject worship, which is hilarious. That means idol worship became ideal worship. Now, ideal worship has become a recognition that there has to be a choice on what wave we function into the future. My greatest advice, I think this is universal advice, but is that people should try to find moments where they access their true nature through decency. Do you know? It's like a person living one day incredibly dishonestly, just intentionally, and one day living incredibly honestly, and then recognizing the karma of both. Recognizing the karma of a peaceful mind, or the karma of, an eternal presence with it's as if when you are welcomed by the limitless, the inconceivable visits you. And inconceivable moments in nature are like glitches in a video game that make you realize there's something more going on with all the dimensions of reality. Comfort, pleasure, emotional satisfaction is like a guardian angel of the capitalistic system. And capitalism is definitely something where, it's as if it's like an attitude can be very precious, but the result of all systems at once is the great, it's like if we all chose to, look at life as if, in our past lives we were all kings, like 8 billion human beings, they had all experienced being kings somehow. Imagine 8 billion kings incarnated on a planet like that. That psychology would be next level. The psychology of the human being is just on the level of how much there is an authorization for expression to happen. What can be said is divinity, is when you notice what your mind is doing is being noticed by an awareness that is being the whole moment. Upon the discovery that you are you are your whole moment of being, that means that this discovery surpasses inner realm, outer realm projectionism, realmism. This is in some sense when a person realizes that energy has nowhere to go, and if truth is energy powered, in some sense it has nowhere to go. Therefore, from the beginning of time, there was an instantaneous realization that before people needed to be enlightened, our planet was enlightened. The universe, this area of the universal sector, it's as if we are the first, builders of, future systems on this planet. People don't realize the position they are in. People are trying to be human when, the dehumanized is like invading them. So imagine there was an alien invasion, right? And it's as if some people didn't believe the alien invasion was happening. Even the news and everybody was like, yo guys, there's an alien invasion happening. Like, everybody should be freaking out right now. And some people were like, I don't believe it, I would say the bizarre thing of trying to find peace at a time of war is that you can only find it in your inner world. You see, a king, there are some kings that are just given crowns, and then there's some kings that they go into the battlefield and they let their karma take them to the king they are. To me, it's as if freedom and full free psychological freedom for an egoic entity is being the creator of its story, the creator of the value of its story. That means the first people, the first earliest atheists, right? Let's say in the 6th century, like Abrahamic religion times, I have this view, honestly, that it's like we're inside a puzzle, and when a person recognizes the value of the intersection of their simplest self and their most honest self, that is a free starting point. A person can look at a moment and be like, this moment's a failure. A person can look at the same moment and be like, this moment's a success. And if you looked at those two people's minds, you'd suddenly realize each of them saw a different possibility and value to what has happened. Right? Human beings, we are like explorers where our briefings are behind our eyes, but we have not shared our briefings with the realm. Right? An advanced civilization would, in some sense, encourage every person on the planet to become an author. Every person to write an honest book on how life has been for them so far. And share that. Do you know? To me, people don't realize writing is like Thor's hammer that fell into the mind of an ape, like 5,000 years ago. Writing is like 5,000 years old or something, right? So it's like this notion that it's as if a tool is nearby, right? And what writing is that it's like when something is so important that it doesn't deserve to get forgotten, you write.